Hi, my name's Dr. Mike Scanlon, and I'm going to talk to you today about a game that I sometimes kind of play when I notice that I'm feeling a bit down on myself or I'm feeling over anxious. And this anxiety is sort of stemming from the noticer function of my brain combining and kind of joining forces with the advisor function. So my noticer part of my brain, that noticer function, if I've got it really switched on and I'm aware of it, I kind of notice that I'm feeling really on edge. And it's usually about something that hasn't happened yet, or it's because something is coming up in the near future and I'm getting a bit jittery or a bit worried about it, or it's making me feel down and a bit miserable about it. And it's usually because the advisor function of my brain is trying its very hardest to encourage me to listen to it and pay attention to that advisor. Because the advisor part of my brain desperately wants me to avoid doing something. So it might send me a sort of advisor function belief or thought, such as, you're not good enough, so there's no point trying to do that. Or you're going to make such a mess of this that you're probably best to try and get out of it. And this is where I'll quite often now, after all these years of struggling with anxiety and low mood, I'll quite often now play what I call the why game. So before we play the game, we need to remember that very often the noticer function and the advisor function come from a place of survival. So it's almost as though our noticer and our advisor are desperately trying to just keep us safe. And if we think about that, that's great, because being safe is pretty good. But we're not really in these situations. In truth, we're not really in a survival situation. So a good example of this might be that if I knew I was having to go and teach a group of psychiatrists, let's say, who were very experienced and really knew their stuff, and it was my job to go and teach them, then that thought might come from my advisor that tells me that you're not good enough to do this, or you're going to make such a fool of yourself. And my noticer part of my brain will notice that if I imagine just making an excuse and not going, then my noticer part of my brain notices that, oh God, that feels better, because it wants me to avoid, it doesn't want me to confront. I know, however, that the Mike Scanlon I want to be doesn't avoid stuff that might be a bit scary. He meets it with curiosity. And this is the why game. And I'm wondering whether you guys could perhaps play the why game with yourself. So I stop. And first of all, I recognize that my noticer and my advisor are trying to convince me in some way to be super avoidant about a particular situation. So what I do is I do a lovely belly breath. I'll just create some calm. And I might even have a think here and say, okay, so why does that part of my brain, my fear brain, my survival part of my brain, why does it want my advisor and my noticer to gang up on me and stop me from doing something? And I'm calm now, so I can think about it. Why does my advisor and my noticer want me to avoid anything really that might cause me anxiety or stress? Because my noticer and my advisor just want me safe. Okay, let's ask another why question. Why does my noticer and my advisor, part of my brain, just want me safe? Well, because that's their job. So when we do get really anxious, sometimes our brain moves into that kind of survival place. And rather than just the potential few moments of anxiety that I will feel if I go ahead and do some teaching with a group of psychiatrists, my brain wants me to believe that it's a life or death sort of situation. I see. So the why is because my brain just wants to protect me. So it is trying to help me. Oh, that's quite nice. Why does this fear that I get show up? Even though I kind of know it's not a life or death situation. And the reason is because as soon as I avoid anything, my noticer notices a feeling of, oh, that feels easier. That feels better. And because it feels easier and because it feels better, it kind of makes sense to avoid. So whenever I get anxious about something that hasn't happened yet, whenever I get worried or low about something that's happening in my life, I always play the why game. Let's recap. So we just stop and we say, why is my noticer and my advisor trying to get me to behave in a particular way? And we think about it and we find the answer. And nearly always that answer will be that they're trying to help us by trying to keep us safe. And then we ask the question again, but why is that so important that I'm safe? And the answer will be because for some reason, my brain has decided that I must be in a terrible threat situation because my noticer part of my brain is noticing all of this internal anxiety, all of that physicality. So remember what we do, very simply, we do one lovely breath to create some calm. And then we just ask ourselves why and why and why, until we start to realize that actually, do you know what? Maybe my advisor is just trying to help me, but maybe I need to think about finding a better advisor. And the way to do that is to stop and say, right, me at my very best, me really functioning as well as I ever can. What would I want to do in this situation? If I listen to my better advisor, which comes from a calm, confident Mike Scanlon, what does he say? Let's check it out. He says, although it might be quite stressful teaching this group of psychiatrists, you've done it before. The worst thing that can happen is one or two of them might not like what you're trying to share with them. And it's quite likely that in truth, you'll have a pretty good morning with them. And anyway, once that morning is finished, it's done and it's in the past. Why? And then tune into your better advisor, which perhaps is the advisor that shows up when you're at your very, very best. Now, I'm wondering whether you too could play the why game with yourself when you notice that you're feeling anxious, worried, or low about something, and that your advisor is giving you advice that will only ever keep you stuck. It's a simple game. Why? Go find your better advisor and see what your better advisor is telling you, and then make a choice. It's all about the psychological flexibility of making better choices by playing the why game. So, thank you so much for listening to me, and give the game a try. It really works.